Okay, the time is 6 minutes past 3 p.m. and we'll begin officially. Hello, distinguished people. You're welcome to the maiden edition of the Sports Investigative Conference 2021. I welcome you to this conference themed Sports Governance Crisis and Sports Underdevelopment in Africa, a conference targeted to examine major structural problems of African sports. On that note, wherever you're joining us from, I bid you welcome. This conference is brought to you by Player Nigeria in collaboration with Premium Times Center for Investigative Journalism and HEDA Resources. This is as a follow-up of the 2 days training for sports journalists on tackling corruption and underdevelopment of sports in Africa. I'd like to officially welcome our partners, our eminent journalists, participants from across the globe. The time is 3 p.m. Actually, 3:07 here in Nigeria. I am aware that we have tons of journalists, especially campus journalists in the conference, and I have been informed to inform you that the best post-conference reportage will be rewarded handsomely. Well, in simple terms, the best news article or report of this conference will be rewarded 24 hours after the conference. To begin officially, my name is Stephanie Adams Douglas, and my job here is to ensure a successful flow of events. And with your cooperation, I believe this will be a successful conference that will yield policy change in the sports sector in Nigeria and across Africa. I'd like to confirm if our panelists are on this session: Ruth Ajayi, Dr. Robert, and also, please, I'd like to confirm if you're here on this conference. Okay, thank you so much. To begin with, we're going to invite some of our partners that will share their welcome speech with each and every one of us, just to welcome us all to this amazing conference. To begin with, please welcome the Executive Director of HEDA Resources for his welcome remarks. If Mr. Lanre Siraj is there, can you please unmute yourself for your welcome remarks? Mr. Lanre Siraj. Is Mr. Lanre Siraj there?
I think he's still having tech.
Mr. Lanre, okay. So if Mr. Lanre Siraj is having technical issues, I'd like to go ahead from here. Please, before we continue with this conference, I'll have to elaborate on this housekeeping rules. Everyone is muted right now. I mean, your microphones are muted. So please ensure that your microphones are always muted, except if you are given the opportunity to speak. So please turn down every other notification so we don't have any form of distraction, if you don't mind. And if you would like to communicate or send a message to myself, being the moderator, or any of the participants, you can please use the question button, or you can send a private message directly to me. Mr. Lanre, are you there? And are you ready for our welcome remarks? So we begin without wasting time.
He's not yet here. I will inform you when he comes in. I think he's having difficulties connecting, but I will just alert you as soon as he comes in.
Okay, please do all to do that, sir. Thank you so much. And next to welcome us, of course, is my boss, a mentor, a friend, and you can refer to him as the godfather of online journalism in Nigeria or Africa, as you may call it. Please welcome the Executive Director of Premium Times Center for Investigative Journalism and publisher Premium Times, Mr. Dapo Oloriyomi, ably represented by the Deputy Director of the Center, Mr. Adedeji Adekunle. Mr. Adedeji, are you there with us?
Hello, yes, I am.
Can you hear me? Sir.
All right, thank you very much. I'm here in the stead of Mr. Oloriyomi, who is unavoidably absent right now. And I bring his greetings and his enthusiasm about what we're about to get into. He expresses his apprehension of the importance of the sports framework in development and youth development in the country, and he knows how important it is in the general developmental framework of a country like Nigeria, which is really dominated by a high youth demographic. So he's really, really happy, and he ensured that we were a part of this very important discussion, and he's looking forward to the deliberations and the insights that will come from this. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. We lost you for a few seconds.
Okay. I was muted, and I hope he said to let everyone know that he hopes that we all enjoy the deliberations, learn from the insights from the different panels, and the outcome serves as a stepping block in the progress of youth and sports in Nigeria. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful meeting.
Thank you so much, Mr. Adedeji Adekunle, the Deputy Director of Premium Times Center for Investigative Journalism, who is representing the Executive Director of the Center. Thank you so much. Once again, I'd like to confirm if Mr. Larry Suraj is here. If not, we'll go on with...
Yes, he's there.
Okay. So, Mr. Larry Suraj, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks, and also to everyone that is... Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir. We can hear you.
Very well.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. I commend Player for actually bringing us together for this very innovative idea of the acculturation of the young people to look at the issue of account, especially with the sports and the abundance that we have in the sports industry. Nigeria is still far away from its rightful position in the world of sports. And this is not for the want of the capacity, like I said. It is basically because we've really not had the good leadership that is required. And when we have the challenge with leadership and the followership are not able to also influence the process and the situation, it means that we are also as culpable as the missing leadership. So it is on this note that we want to appreciate our people for Player PTCIJ and HEDA for actually coming up with this idea, and at the same time pledging the continued support of HEDA for this initiative And we want to see how we would take maximum advantage of the beneficiaries of this training and convening today, such that we can have more of this. And then also we can have the impact of this going into the world of sports in Nigeria. Thank you very much for this time. And I will be around for further interrogation and engagement. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Larry Suraj, for that distinct and precise welcome note. I think I heard you say something about good leadership, and good leadership is something that we clamor for in Nigeria as a whole, but for the sporting sector in Nigeria as well, looking at the way the sporting sector can be improved. Thank you so much once again for that welcome remark.
Thank you so much.
The time is 15 minutes. Thank you so much, sir. The time is 15 minutes past 3. And I'd like to take you back a little bit to the event that actually spurred the conversation around this conference. Last year, there was a workshop training for sports journalists in Nigeria. And that's because while a lot of journalists focus on other sectors in Nigeria, the sporting sector is always nobody is touchlighting or highlighting on the irregularities happening in the sporting sector. Of course, whether you love football or you love sports, you will get to know that there has been a lot of irregularities over the years. Of recent, Nigeria was at the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. Of recent, Nigeria was at the Under-20 World Championship, but you could tell that there are lots of irregularities around that. And we're not just talking about football, we're talking about all the components of the sports sector. And last year, some of the observations were corruption is a major factor responsible for the underdevelopment and crippling of sport and youth development in Nigeria. And also, some of the observations were the corruption in sports goes beyond financial corruption, which includes nepotism, undue interference of state politics in Nigeria, match fixing, illegal betting, leaking of information, poor sports governance, conflicts of interest, and so much more. And as a result of that conversation, we thought it's best we bring this together and have a conversation about the sporting sector, not just in Nigeria, not just in Africa, but in the whole world. And that's why, if you notice, we have a great panel, or will I say a great combination of resource persons. We have Miss Ruth Ajayi, who is a female football coach here in Nigeria. I can't wait to hear her presentation, considering that she is actually focused on a gender that a lot of people do not tend to focus on when it comes to sports. Also, we have Mr. Kayode Thomas, who is a journalist, a veteran sports journalist, and a columnist with the Premium Times as well. And our partner, or our resource persons all the way from Berlin, Germany, Mr. Robert Kempe. Before I go on, first we'd like to engage our panelists or our resource persons for about 5 to 10 minutes to share their experience in the sporting sector, be it in Nigeria, Africa, or in the whole world. But please give me some minutes while I read a little about our resource persons. Ms. Ruth Ajayi is the coach of the Lead City University female football team in Ibadan. Ruth worked with the Oyo State Football Club during her trainer education. She completed her diploma in educational management at the University of Ibadan and proceeded to the Lead City University, where she holds a bachelor in education. As ardent learner, she further holds a master's degree in sociology and psychology of sports. Mrs. Ruth Ajayi, if you're there, please, I'd like you to unmute yourself and tell us about the experience you have faced or your experience as a female football coach in Nigeria.
Hello. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mrs. Ruth Ajayi. Good afternoon.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to be here. Nice seeing your face and this great event. I'm happy to be here. Once again, my name is Ajayi Rose. I was once a female footballer before becoming a coach. Actually, the experience being a coach is not a palatable one, especially when it comes to female football. Male football is still far more better than female football. But when it comes to female football, there is this gender inequality in Nigeria. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So there is gender inequality, and because of all this inequality, most of the ladies don't want to venture into football again or sports generally. They don't want to, especially when it comes to school settings. Those that are playing, if you look at it very well, you see our national team up till now are still those that are still playing from years back, 10 years ago. They are still the same leg. They are still parading. It means we are still very, very lacking behind. You know, according to the title of this meeting, grassroots. We are actually lagging behind when it comes to grassroots. We don't focus enough on our grassroots, and it's causing a lot of problems. And majorly because some of our stakeholders and government, they put in those that are not those that are not in the field properly. You know, when you see somebody that read economics, somebody that read agric, managing sports, you see them in the ministry. It's not encouraging. Sometimes when you want to do some things and you want to, you propose a good thing to them, you see them not accepting it, especially if it doesn't favor them. So this, I think, these are some of the things that we need to look into as African, you know, because I've seen the European football. I see what is going on there. I see their females. They start from grassroots. You see a young girl going to academy. We don't have something like that here. We don't have it. And if there's, I can see some bodies that want to start this. It's not encouraging because if you don't have funds, you don't have sponsors to start things like this, you back out. Owning a football uh, club or team means you need to have a sponsor or your money with you. So all these problems lies in the hands of our government and NGOs, the NGOs. So I think if we stop politicizing sports in Africa, probably we will get to where others have gotten to. So by this, we would like to, because I could see that the experience when during the time of my playing, it's still the same experience now. I think it's even getting worse because during our days, I think we see sacrifices, we sacrifice a lot. But now girls of nowadays don't want to sacrifice that. They don't want to go to the length. You know, we've gone 18 hours journey lapping ourselves, if you know what that means. But girls of nowadays don't want to, even if you invite them for training out, if you didn't promise them this little thing, they won't come. And I won't blame them because most of them came from a home that couldn't, I mean, feel, they can't feel themselves. They don't even have transport fare to go to training, not to talk of participating very well. Kids are some of the problems too. If we can at least
Okay,
remove politics,
Mrs. Ajayi, yes, Mrs. Ajayi,
yes.
I'll have to hold you there a little bit because we're already getting into, yes, please hold, I'll come back to you. Just give us a few minutes because you're already talking about the solutions after identifying the problems. We're going to go all the way to Germany now. We're going to hear, we've heard from Mrs. Ruth Ajayi talking about gender inequality in around the sporting sector in Nigeria. She also talked about poor sponsorship. She talked about politicizing sport and poor remuneration. She talked about that. And last but not the least, she also talked about professional engagement. So far so good. Miss Ajayi being a female athlete and I beg your pardon, Miss Ajayi being a sports person, she used to be a sports person and now she leads or coach a team of female footballers. You know, these are all her, this is what she has experienced over the years, and she believes that we can do better. I'd like to take us back to Dr. or rather Mr. Robert Kempe. Mr. Robert Kempe is a freelance investigative journalist based in Berlin, Germany. So permit me to read a little about our resource persons all the way from Germany. He is a freelance investigative journalist working with the German public broadcaster, ARD television and radio. He frequently contributes to the weekly TV program, Sport Inside, the first and only format in Germany concentrating solely on investigative sports reporting. Robert mainly focuses on international sport politics and governance, including grand corruption within IOC, FIFA, and other international sports federations. Due to his damning reports, he has repeatedly been denied access to cover major sporting events in countries like Qatar and Russia. I remember seeing a news about Mr. Robert Kempe, where his access was denied recently. I wouldn't want to say all about him right now, but I'll let him share his experience being a sports journalist in Berlin. Mr. Robert Kempe, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Could you hear me? Yeah.
I can hear you.
So thank you very much first for the invitation. I'm very happy about it, very delighted to speak at your conference, and yeah, and I hope that everybody will have a fruitful discussion and a good outcome. So thank you for having me here, and thank you for the nice introduction. Like you said, I'm mostly covering national, international sport organizations like International Olympic Committee, FIFA, but also the European Football Confederation, UEFA. We are focusing, for example, in our work on election of host cities of mega events like the Olympics, or about the Olympics of host countries, of mega events like the World Cup, or we are also focusing on bidding races of candidates for presidencies. This work also brought me to Africa several times, because the continent plays a prominent role in sports politics, which is, yeah, in my point of view, shamelessly exploited in parts by some officials, but maybe you know that better than me. However, because this field is too complex to explain it in all its facets, in a few introductory sentences, I will first discuss the importance of the international sports policy. During my work in the field over the last 10 years, it has become increasingly clear to me that sport reflects the society on a small scale. The difference is that, unlike governments or political organizations, sport organizations are not accountable to anyone. Sport organizations have the privilege of so-called autonomy, which they repeatedly claim for themselves on national but also international level. This lack of accountability makes the work of journalists all the more important. For example, we see that the big scandals in sport are not uncovered by the organizations themselves. It is usually whistleblowers or journalists who repeatedly point out abuses. Only through repeated publicity is pressure built up on the sports organizations. Politicians can seldom be counted on, as they like to adorn themselves with the medals or success of national athletes. So it comes all down to journalists, even if the consequences can be drastic. I'm a journalist in Europe. I know that I have more freedom in reporting than you do, But even in Europe, we notice that critical sports reporting does not remain without consequences. I have already been refused, like you said, entry or permission to film in several countries. For example, I was refused entry to the FIFA Congress in Bahrain after we reported on a member of the Bahraini royal family who was running for FIFA president a year earlier. At the time, we reported how he was involved in the Arab Spring crackdown, and he chaired a committee that identified athletes, especially footballers, in the demonstration. The footballers had to live with massive consequences, were imprisoned and tortured. This is what a former Bahraini national player who found a home in Australia told us. The story went, for example, around the world at that time. Of course, it was the FIFA president elections. And the Bahraini Sheikh did not become FIFA president. I can't say whether it was because of the accusations or not. The fact is that in 2018, the country, for example, also wanted to take revenge on the Bahraini national player. He was arrested in Thailand on his honeymoon. Bahrain demanded his extradition. For weeks, his situation was precarious. He was threatened with imprisonment and torture in Bahrain. It was only because of courageous and brave activists and journalists who finally put pressure on FIFA to intervene and commit to its own human rights statutes that the extradition was averted. Just this summer, my accreditation, for example, for the European Football Championships was revoked at the behest of Russia, a country we had repeatedly reported on in the course of the 2018 World Cup. It was only through great efforts on the part of the broadcaster that it was finally issued an accreditation. In Russia, we reported on the massive price hikes in stadium constructions for the World Cup, and how rich businessmen made money from it. We also reported on forced labors from North Korea at Russian construction sites. This is one example when it comes to football, but you have also other problems of sport mega events.
Okay.
I can stop here. I could also talk about another one about football, but yeah, you are managing the time.
Yes, so we're going to have an elaborate conversation during the panel session with other resource persons. But right now we're going to talk about, we're going to speak to Mr. Kayode Thomas. But before we speak to Mr. Kayode Thomas, Mr. Kempe, I was able to pick down or jot down a few points from what you said. And I quote, "I have freedom to report better than you." So the question will be, how free is your freedom as a sports journalist in Europe? So that's something that question will be answered during the panel discussion. And that's because in our climb, freedom from what we see is not really freedom, but I would like you to answer the question. How free is your freedom as a sports journalist? You also talked about politics in FIFA, the FIFA body. We will come back to that. And you also talked about sport organizations, where you said sport organizations are not accountable to anyone, which makes the work of journalists difficult. We are all going to talk about that during the panel discussion. Right now, I would like to confirm if Mr. Kayode is here with us, so I can introduce him and hear his own experience before we go into the panel discussion. Mr. Kayode, are you here?
Yes.
Okay, so welcome, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Mr. Kayode Thomas is the editor-in-chief of the Nigerian online newspaper, 234sportsng.com. He is also a regular contributor to Premium Times, The Cable, Sahara Reporters, and City Voice. Thomas began his career at The Guardian in 1996 and worked with This Day, The Comet, The Next, and other Nigerian newspapers. In 2010, he was appointed SA Media and Strategist to Sports Minister Ibrahim Bio. In 2011, he set up the investigative desk of The Nation. From 2013 to 2017, he served as a board member of the Athletics Federation of Nigeria. Thomas is one of the most decorated reporters in Nigeria, has won the prestigious CNN International African Journalist of the Year Award for sports reporting. He won twice, among other international recognition. Mr. Kayode, thank you so much for making out time to join us. Could you please share your experience as a sports journalist, or rather, a veteran sports journalist in Nigeria? And also, when you were in position or when you were in the ministry working as SA Media and Strategist to Sports Minister Ibrahim Bio. Let's hear your experience so far.
Well, thank you very much. I'm grateful that HEDA, Player, and Premium Times, they put this together at this time. Because in the next few days, there will be elections into sports federations in Nigeria. And you know, the foundation of every good or bad sports industry is determined by who you elect into the board of the federation. As at the time Nigeria had it so good in sport, then we had managers who were selfless, who were ready to do things for sports because they love the sports and they want to move it forward. And that was why if you look at the 60s, the 70s, and even up to the early 80s, we were so good in sports that the world see Nigeria as the next thing to happen to sports to dethrone the Americans and the Europeans. But the decline began from the late 80s till today because we've been able to have some list of very bad people at the head of sports federation. And we also been having this same list as sports minister. And with the election in another few weeks, I've not been reading stories in the newspaper, online, or TV, analyzing the character that want to take our sports to the next level. Because if you look at Nigeria's sports today, we have a major crisis. And we need men and women who have very high integrity, who actually have what it takes to take sports to the next level. Because if you have all the facilities in the world, you have everything, you have all the talent. If you don't have these men running your sport, you are going to fail. But I'm still waiting for that analysis. Okay, people will come, oh, I want to be president of Basketball Federation. I will do this, I will do that. Nobody's actually looking at that person. What are his pedigree? What has he done before? He was there 4 years ago. What does he have to take sports to the next level? You see, if you are deep in sports in Nigeria, you actually understand that we are in a very, very tough time. If you look at our national football team, virtually all the players, they are from obscure team in Europe. We have so much talent here that are wasting away. If you look at the teams that are reflected in basketball at the Olympics, the men and the women, all of them, they are from the US. At the grassroots in Nigeria, at the community level, high school, intercollegiate, primary school, we don't have sports today. And that is why we are not producing stars. So for this to stop, we need men and women who are actually visionary, who will take sports down to the grassroots level and start doing sports as an industry in Nigeria. So where does the media stand in all this? The media is supposed to set agenda. They're supposed to.
Okay, Mr. Kayode. Okay, Mr. Kayode, can you hear me?
Ma?
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Yes. I know that you were already trying to spill out on what the media needs to do, what they should do to ensure that sports sector in Nigeria is better. So at the moment, would you please share your own experience being an SA Media and Strategist to the Minister of Sport? What would you say was your experience as the SA Media and Strategist?
You see, the appointment came by accident. I was going to the office one day and somebody called me. He said his name is Ibrahim Bio. I had written a story in Sunday Next, Bio Mind the Gap, where I listed all the hills and what you encounter in the ministry. So the man called me because people from the ministry don't call me. So I thought it was 419. So I said, get off my line, you this 419. So later somebody called me and said they gave me the man my number. So I met the man. And I told him that, look, if you want me to work as your essay as minister, you have to do this and this. One, the World Cup is in South Africa. The South African government, they gave Nigeria one of the best hotels in Durban. But because of our official some contractor, they went and rent a roadside hotel. The man said it's a lie. I said, well, that's the truth. What we have for the World Cup is a roadside hotel. So the man met the president. The president gave him some SSS guy. They traveled to South Africa. They met the head of South Africa FA. They met everybody involved in football in South Africa. They saw the hotel. And right there, they canceled the hotel. And Nigeria paid a fine of $25,000. And that was how we started to work. I said, let us reform football first. After reforming football, we take it to the next level and do the other sports. But you believe that the week I joined this man as essay, people told him that, look, a guy you cannot work with, he's a friend of Sarah Reporter. The man said, well, if he's a friend of Showore, that should be my problem. It's not your problem. So we started the football reform in Nigeria. The first time in the history of this country, people who are holding football down in Nigeria, they were sent to jail. They were sent to prison. But then the president then was in love with what we are doing. That is President Jonathan. But at the same time, he was under pressure from the PDP chairman, Amadou Ali, and Senator Mark, who are from the same zone with the president of NFF then. So all the things that we plan to do, all the football reform, the man just threw it away. I mean, the president. But we are already agreed that we are going to pull out from international football for 2 years and actually start from the grassroots and start the club football like it used to be in the 70s in Nigeria. But the president threw everything away. And that was the end of our dream to reform sports in Nigeria. And I could remember that as around 2017, I was supposed to contest, I was contesting president of AFN. And a lot of delegates behind me. But on the day of the election, they canceled my name. They said the minister then, that long said they should cancel my name, that on no ground will I be president of any association in Nigeria. So I wrote a petition to the presidency. I wrote to the Senate president. They were supposed to organize the election. We organized the election because the man just, look how Thomas cannot contest. But along the line, there were pressure here and there. They said, look, Nigeria sports is not ready until we have a good guy as sports minister. That this minister, Dalong, doesn't want people that want to move sports to the next level in Nigeria. They are comfortable with just participation in the Olympics, in the Commonwealth, and the Africa Games. And why? Because they have opportunity to make to steal a lot of money. Because if you look at the FIFA World Cup, like I told Nigerians in 2018 World Cup, government does not need to give Nigeria a dime for the World Cup because everything is paid for. For every match you play in the World Cup, $3 million. I called the sportsman today, Mr. Dalong, you are a scammer. This thing you are doing is scam. You don't need. He told me that he will sue me after 7 days if I don't write a rejoinder. I didn't write any rejoinder. It's a scam. When you qualify for the World Cup, if I will give $1.5 million to prepare, then for every match you play, you get 3 million. So they are comfortable with all this money. I mean, the people that are association, they are doing it because they want to go to the Commonwealth Games next year. They want to go to the Olympics, go to the African Games. They don't have any business with the sport at the grassroots. Get allocation from government, and life goes on. So that is the bane of sports in Nigeria today. And I think journalists, we should actually question people. HEDA have been head of basketball for 4 years. In Nigeria, we don't have basketball at the high school level. We don't have intercollegiate. We don't have the primary school level. We don't have a Premier Basketball League. This guy will go to the US, pick basketball players that cannot make the American team. They will come and represent Nigeria and win for Nigeria. If America had abandoned sports at the grassroots, where we kidnap people? So it's a huge problem.
Thank you, Mr. Kayode. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay, go ahead, sir.
I mean, the tragedy is that we have millions of Nigerian youth who are highly talented in sports. I've been a reporter and I've been on the other side. I see their position, I see everything. All we just need to do is a good program. These people are willing and ready, but the program is not there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kayode, for your contribution and for pointing out everything that we intend to speak about during the panel discussion. Thank you so much for that. So if you're just joining in, because I can see a lot of people are just joining in, well, you're not really late, you're right on time, but I'd like to nudge all the campus journalists, especially sports journalists on this conference, that this is a good opportunity to explore more than you have done. This is a great opportunity to pitch or get ideas for your next big story on the sports industry, or rather the sporting sector in Nigeria and in Africa. Before we begin the panel conversation or the panel discussion, we are going to be talking about, I'll be asking our panelists on their thoughts on repositioning the sports industry. I recall Mr. Kayode talked about the former Minister of Youth and Sports, Mr. Dalong. Recently, we had a situation in Tokyo 2020, where our athletes, our sports gurus had some issues in Tokyo, some embarrassing issues. And I wish we had a representative from the Ministry of Sports to answer these questions. In the absence of none, we are going to try to analyze what happened in Tokyo and also some of the issues that was able to look at the Under-20 World Championship in Kenya. Ms. Ruth Ajayi, I remember you talked about gender inequality in the sports industry. Mr. Kempe, would you also talk about gender inequality in the sporting sector in Europe?
Yes.
Mr. Kempe,
yeah. You hear me? Okay. Yes, of course.
Can you please highlight this gender inequality in the sporting sector in Europe?
Yeah, especially when you look at on the side on the officials, the representatives inside the federation. So just look to the people on the top. They are mostly men. Still, sport is governed by men. And this is, I think, in my point of view, one of the biggest issues and the biggest task sports needs to solve. But because, I don't know, maybe you could speak better about it. But of course, in my understanding, when there's no female influence on the top of an organization, how should the problems to be understand of the females you have in your organization? It's not possible. That means, of course, you need equality in this kind of organizations. And you see it that even Germany has also big problems when it comes to, for example, harassment of minors in sport. Well, it's a big issues we're discussing at the moment, but it took a long time to look at these issues. And I think this is a big need for equality, a big need even for understanding of problems, and we need to change I would say the men focus in sports. And yeah, this should be done on national level, but also on international level.
Okay, still with you, I'd like to know, can you please talk more on your findings in some of the investigation with FIFA and IOC? I recall that some of your investigation some of your investigation were as a result of, or rather, I beg your pardon, some of your some of the reasons why you were not given access to some of the sporting events was as a result of your investigations. So could you please tell us more about your findings in some of the investigation with FIFA and IOC?
Yeah, the last ones I told about Bahrain, and when it comes to Russia, other problems I had were, for example, in Azerbaijan, which is a country which put a big focus on sport, also to hide their massive human rights record they have when it comes to freedom of expression, freedom of press, etc. They played a big role, or they came to power in sport. For example, a few years ago, they were the host of the first so-called European Games. They were also part of the European football tournament this year, and we tried to go there several times, and we highlighted before the human rights situation in the country and everything, and so on. And so we never received a filming accreditation to go there. When I got a visa or the accreditation for the Euro this year, it was important for me to go to Baku for the first time, because I was never allowed to go there and film there. But even I was not even sitting in the plane. Then my colleague called me and said that the foreign ministry of Azerbaijan called him, and they denied our filming accreditation there. So that means we can go there, but we can basically do nothing. Even he was picked up by the Secret Service when he arrived at the airport. So they were focusing us. But this is the thing, that one of the biggest problems in sport, that sport, in my point of view, which praise themselves for their values, for the ethic, for the fair play, they don't act like that. When we, for example, now looking on China, in 3.5 months, there will be the Olympic Winter Games. Of course, I know winter sport is not playing a big role in Africa, but it's a mega event with over 5,000 athletes who go in there. And you have a massive human rights record in the country. NGOs say that 1 million people of the minority of the Uyghurs, the Muslim minority of the Uyghurs, are sitting in kind of concentration camps there, and the Olympic sport is silent about the situation. I mean, these are the people on the international level. When this is happening there, it's also a problem for national level, even for sports development, because then nobody is taking sport seriously. Yeah, sport lost its credibility, and there's only one big thing sport has. This is credibility. When sport lost credibility, it's just business. And this is, in my point of view, this improvement the international sport is going through since a couple of years.
Okay. Thank you so much. It is evident that some of these issues are not peculiar to the Nigerian sporting sector. How would you talk about, or how can you just say something about the Nigerian sporting sector? As regards to some of your investigations, I was able to read some of your investigations. You touched a lot on the European sporting sector. What would you say about the African sporting sector and the Nigerian sporting sector?
Of course, when it comes down to Africa, football is a big issue in Africa. I mean, it is one of the most enthusiastic continents in the world when it comes to football. And what you can discover there since a couple of years, I would say, a couple of time, that African football, that the African Football Confederation and with it African football have become, in my point of view, a so-called testing ground for FIFA. Even FIFA violates its own rules about confederative independence and trying to control, I would say, CAF. You can see it when you look at the confederation that the Swiss Congolese, Veren Mosengo Omba, who is an old friend of Infantino. They know each other since Infantino's times in UEFA. Mosengo Omba was also responsible for Infantino's election campaign in Africa when he became president. He is now the general secretary of CAF. CAF lost its independence. You can even see that with the new president, Patrice Motsepe from South Africa, which is, to make it clear, Infantino's man in Africa now. He will everything do like he wants, because he had a lot of influence, tried a lot of or pushed other national federation presidents to vote for Motsepe. So this is something FIFA did, and so there's no independence of the confederation, my point of view. Why is that? Okay, now we can speculate. But first of all, Africa has a lot to offer. When it comes to sports politics, the most important is that I think there are 54 votes Africa can offer in the FIFA Congress, which is a lot. And when you now look at the plans FIFA had in the last years, few years ago, for example, Infantino declared a $55 billion offer for a so-called new Club World Cup, where other parts of the world were against it. But he was also collaborating with Africa first. We came across papers that made it clear there was much more at stake, not only a new competition. It was planned was a complete sellout of all FIFA rights, so to speak. And behind that was it said that Saudi Arabia have been ready as the backer, as the country who gave the money. So that, and Saudi Arabia, we know, has been pushing for the big football stage for a long time. And now we have the following this year. Gianni Infantino has already been to Saudi Arabia this year twice to visit the Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman. We know how much money Saudi Arabia has. The last time he was there in August. And who was accompanying Gianni Infantino visiting the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia? It was Patrice Motsepe, the CAF president. In my point of view, what he wants to do in Saudi Arabia in terms of that. Officially, FIFA said to discuss sport cooperations with FIFA and CAF. From my point of view, such meetings are always suspicious, especially if you follow now the discussions about the World Cup that is supposed to take place every 2 years. Of course, Gianni or FIFA needs donors for that, but more he needs, in the first place, votes. Yeah, the role of Africa is always crucial when it comes to that. We know, and you could unfortunately observe it again and again, is that Africa's officials have not always decided in the interest of sustainable football development. Yeah, and to conclude with a clear sentence, you see that decisions on international levels have always an impact on national level. And
okay.
This is the thing, and I think even this is a task even for journalists to ask what's going on there. Yeah. Okay. And
okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Kempe. Talking about Gianni Infantino and Patrice Motsepe, I recall that both this FIFA delegation were recently in Nigeria. They were received by the president of Nigeria, even though we've not heard a lot about what happened, how the visit went, you know. So talking about these two, of course, they were in Nigeria recently to visit the president of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, and also to commemorate the maiden Aisha Buhari Cup. Talking about the female players or female footballers, I would like to go back to Ms. Ruth Ajayi. What do you think about the Aisha Buhari Cup? And I'm not talking about the Aisha Buhari Cup on its own, but I'm talking about promoting women football in the country. Is that the best way to go about it? Is that helping in any other way? Ms. Ruth Ajayi. Is Ms. Ruth with us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So I was talking about Mr. Gianni Infantino and Patrice Motsepe's visit to Nigeria and to commemorate the Maiden Aisha Buhari Cup, a tournament that is geared at promoting women football in the country. What do you think about, is that a great step? And what do you think about promoting female or women football in Nigeria?
Yes, it's a good invention. It's a good idea, but to me, it's been they do it in a wrong direction, the wrong way, in the sense that this Aisha Buhari Cup was played by so-called professionals. I think it would have been better if we take it to probably the amateur level. If all these girls are just coming up, most of the players that played in Aisha Buhari, they are national players, Nigerian national teams, and we know them, we know what they can do. And at the end of the day, look at what South Africa did to us in on that day. What I think is they should have at least make this the publicity they gave to this Aisha Buhari Cup.
Ms. Ajayi, are you here?
It was more within few weeks that they were planning it. So I think it should have been all these amateur girls. If it amateur, we would see a lot of talent. We have girls that can play. I am so surprised that I'm still seeing some ladies playing 10 years, more than 10 years, still in that national. They've made it already. I think you agree with me that most of us that choose whatever career we in life, we choose it because we want to make it, because we want to thrive in that career. But when somebody is doing something, is doing it for 5, 6, 7 years, 10 years, no gain, you'll be discouraged. Sometimes some girls will drop. We have a lot of girls that are playing good football, but because they know that if they don't have leg, so to say, or they don't have a sponsor who can take them to the national team, they won't get there. So because of that, so many people back down. We have so many that can see. We have girls that can play more than assistant, that can play more than Otega, that can play more than, we have them in the Nigerian, we have them in the Division 2, we have them in the amateur. But when they are not playing, you can't see them in a limelight. How will they know them? So what Aisha Buhari will have been is to have been a grassroots competition, not national. To me, in my own opinion, it shouldn't be. It is supposed to be a national competition. It's supposed to be a grassroots. Let the other African countries too bring their grass. Let's see the level. Let's see how far we are matching up with each other. So let's just try and I think if we can see some other NGOs, some other stakeholders that can stand up to sponsor another competition for ladies, for girls.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Ajayi. Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Ajayi. Ms. Ajayi just talked about grassroots involvement for young female footballers instead of putting all our focus on professionals. It is important that the engagement goes all the way to the grassroots. Mr. Thomas Kayode, I'm going to come back to you right now. I'd like to know, what do you think we should do to make the Nigerian sporting sector better? How do we reposition the Nigerian sporting sector? And making reference to the embarrassing issue or the incident that happened at Tokyo 2020 as regards our athletes and their kits and so much more. Can you please talk about that?
Well, it's so simple. Elsewhere in the world, you see Europeans, America, they are criminals everywhere. But when you do something that is against the law, you get punished, which is what don't happen in Nigeria. People get away with murder. Last year, November, on the 18th to be precise, I wrote a letter to Solidarity that our athletes will be disqualified from participating in the Olympics because they have not done what they need to do about testing, about out of commercial testing. When I wrote the article, Dari and a lot of people, they wrote all manner of things about me, prophet of doom, this, all sorts of insult and abuses. I told them that, look, if you don't do this, this is not Nigeria where you can do things. This is an international competition. They're going to throw us out. And like I predicted, they didn't do what they need to do. About 10 athletes from 20 all over the world, 10 from Nigeria. You can imagine the embarrassment. 20 all over the world from Nigeria were kicked out of the Olympic. Has anybody inquired? Has anybody been sanctioned? Now, Samsung, one of the sponsors of the Olympics, gave Nigeria athletes and other athletes from all over the world a Samsung phone. These 10 athletes, one official collected on their behalf and refused to give them. Now, the athletes, they have to carry placard all over Tokyo before they get the phones. Has anybody been punished? Has anybody been sanctioned? So we have a very, very long way to go. Like I was saying earlier, about 20, 30 federations will elect president and other officials in the next few days. I'm yet to read somewhere where somebody is saying that, look, this man, you've been there for 4 years, you've been there for 8 years, what have you done? So we have a long way to go. And ironically, we have a president who doesn't even know the power of sports. Because the power of sports goes beyond is 2-0, is 2-1, is 2 that. You know how many people will be employed, how many doctors, how many nurses, chiropractors, physiotherapists, how many stewards will be employed if you have a very good league in Nigeria. In basketball, boxing, you know how many area boys that will leave the street? So they are not thinking geometrically. When they play matches all over the weekend in Germany, do you know how many people are engaged? When they play basketball in the US on the weekend, do you know how many people are engaged? So the power how about tourism? No one want to go to Spain because they want to go to the new Madrid stadium or they want to go to Barcelona stadium. So there's so many things that we can do with sport, especially when we have youth that are talented and they're very good in sports. But we don't care. Now the media, the sporting press that's supposed to set agenda, are supposed to do things, are also not ready. When Amos Adamu started this, you see, the person that started Nigeria sports in Nigeria was Amos Adamu. When he started his journey of taking Nigeria sports down, a few of us that saw the future then, we are saying, look, Adamu, what you are doing is not good, this. They call us satanic writer, that we are enemy of progress. It got to a point that Adamu sued me in 2006 or 2007 for 500 million naira. But like, although I eventually won the case, but I mean, if the press, if we the media said, look, this man is not good for our sport, this man is destroying our sport, because it was Adamu that took us from development to participation in the Olympics, in Commonwealth. They have to do for all over the world. They give non-Nigerian passport just to come and print so that you get money out of government, that you are going to the Olympics. So if the media are working, you know, that look, this man is killing sport, probably we won't be here we are today. Now we have people that are playing in backyard league in Europe, Ukraine, making our football team, Afghanistan, for all manner of countries, playing for our national team. If we used to have players from abroad, they must have done one or two things at home and established themselves in big clubs abroad. Not all kinds of obscure people that are. We have a basketball team that every player, about 95% or more, are Americans. And the reason why they are in our team was because they cannot make the American team. So for how long are we going to continue like this? So as we are having an election next week, I ask these people, you want to be the president of this federation for 4 years as a journalist? We need to ask them, what are your plans? The man that they disqualified me for to be the president of AFN, he didn't have any program. So on the eve of election, he saw my program, he went and photocopied it and put his name. I still have a copy in my house, Ibrahim Guzo. He was the man that long anointed to be the president of AFN. He photocopied my program, removed my name, and just put the paper and write his name. I was distributing it. So that's the level of impunity. People that didn't allow our athletes to compete in Tokyo, they are still in the ministry working. They are still in there working. People that stole the phone for athletes, they are still in the ministry working. They've not been sanctioned. So I don't know where we're going to start. I don't know what we're going to do. But the thing is, once we elect somebody, and after 4 years, you have not been able to move the force, they kick them out. Once officials are involved in corruption or in anything that is illegal, they are sanctioned. That will serve as deterrence to others. If I can lose my job, Mr. B will not want to lose his job. But a situation where 10 athletes were denied the chance of participating in the Olympics, and nobody has been even issued a query. I think it's very serious. We have a very serious problem in sports.
Thank you, Mr. Kayode, and thank you, Mr. Kayode. You made valid points there, talking about the leadership of the country and also the leadership of the sporting sector in Nigeria. While you were speaking, I was able to pick out a few things from what you said. And I remember some years back when some funds were donated by private bodies to establish or refurbish some stadiums in Nigeria. Also, recently we launched the Lekon Salami. We launched the refurbished Lekon Salami studio in Ibadan. I mean the stadium. Thank you. The stadium in Ibadan. And a few months back, of course, we know that the richest man in Africa also donated some funds for to refurbish the MKO Abiola Stadium. What do you think about private persons investing in the sporting sector in Nigeria, and how has it been so far? Do we have any improvement in terms of facility and structure? And are we accountable? Do we have any form of report on how the monies are being used to refurbish some of the stadiums in Nigeria? I'll still come back to you. This question is for you, Mr. Kayode.
Well, thank you very much. Let me start by saying that when we used to do well in sports in this country, sport was actually in the hand of private people. People like Israel Adebayo, Lekon Salami, MKO Abiola, Nwanyang, Pa Achebe, and all the rest of them. We have Arowa in Kaduna, who owns Ranchers B. We have Abdusalam from Kwara. We have Raka Rovers. And not just football clubs. Even we have private companies investing in athletics, in tennis. Let's not forget that about 30, 40 years ago, two of the best tennis tournaments in the world, they are from Nigeria, the Lord Rumens and Obehart Court, where you have players from all over the world who come to Nigeria. Lord Rumen was just an individual. Obehart Court was an institute of Guinness. So these things are very, very good. But people like, you cannot forget people like Chief Nati Dowu. These are people that invest their millions in sport because we are passionate about it. But all these changed when people like Amos Adamo came into our sports. And they began to take over the sports federation. They began to take over everything. Now back to your talk about facilities. It's good we have facilities all over the country, especially mini stadia in all the local governments. But beyond that, you need to ask the question: what kind of facilities do they have in Jamaica that they are dominating sprints all over the world? It makes interest to know that before this last Olympics, Jamaica has won 78 medals in the Olympics. Nigeria has only 25. What is the state of facilities in Jamaica? Lagos State, where I was born, live all my life, they have better facilities than Jamaica. But Lagos has not achieved half of, in fact, not even a quarter of what Jamaica has achieved in sport. Why? Because Jamaica, they have good managers. So it's not about facilities, it's not about talent, it's not about money. The first thing is you need good managers. We don't have good managers here. We need a system where people are punished okay, you see coaches harassing athletes sexually, and the whole thing ends up just discussion and they brush it aside. You have coaches or financial director in a club stealing millions, financial director in the ministry stealing millions, and nothing happens. Athletes don't get their allowance, people don't get their kids, and it's on and on like that. So if you don't have good managers, you can have all the best facilities in the world, you can have the best talent, you still end up a failure. That's my take. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for that. Ms. Ruth Ajayi, if you're there, I would like to throw this question to you. But before I do that, there are some comments in the session. And please, if you have any question kindly use the question button down, and we'll definitely respond, or I'll definitely get the resource persons to respond. And someone is saying Aisha Buhari Cup is an avenue for the coach to prepare for the A1 qualifiers. Aisha Buhari Cup is not for grassroots and can never be for grassroots. It's more like the US Summer Series. Okay, so let's hear more about that. This is coming from Mr. or rather Monsura Olatunji, a sports journalist, I suppose. And this is coming from Nasiru Ogirima. And Nasiru says, I agree with the current speaker. Let other countries and Nigeria reach out to the unknown player, quote and unquote, who could be more important. Grassroots youth should be the target. Investigative journalists could help bring such target group out. All they need is a robust database of this youth. Thank you so much for your contribution, Nasiru. We have quite a number of questions, but I think we're running out of time. Someone said, and this is to Olushola Adebayo. This is from Olushola Adebayo. Mrs. Ajayi was on point with her submission on the Aisha Buhari Cup. Women grassroots football needs such huge backing. It will help our women football develop. It will help our women develop a great deal than the jamboree we witnessed during the April. Oh no, please, no name calling here, but it's okay. Someone said, who says Aisha Buhari can't use her foundation back to sponsor such principal cup? Anyway, these are conversations. So we have a conversation or contribution coming in through the chat box. If you have questions, please do well to send it to us and we'll attend to them. Our resource persons here are Mr. Robert Kempe, a freelance sports journalist from Berlin, Germany. We have Mr. Kayode Thomas, a journalist as well, and the chief editor of 234. We also have Ms. Ruth Ajayi. Ms. Ruth Ajayi is a football coach, and she is coaching the female team at Lead City University. Dr. Kampe, or Mr. Kampe, I beg your pardon. I would like you to answer this question before we round up. How free is your freedom as a sports journalist, considering the recent event that happened in Berlin where you were denied access to one of the sporting activities? How free is your freedom as a sports journalist in Europe or in Berlin specifically?
In Berlin, it's so far fine. Okay, it's for us sometimes problematic to get official statements or interviews with high-ranking sport officials who don't want to talk about several subjects, for example, or don't want to talk to us. That means we have contact with them just via their lawyers, and so they don't give us any interviews, or it's tougher to get interviews with them. That's the situation in Germany. When it comes to sport on an international level, for quite a time it was good. For example, when you want to report human rights situations in some countries. Sport events were a good vehicle or a good reason to go to this country, because most of them said, okay, he's just coming here to report about sport, yeah, how fast somebody run, how long somebody jump, and so on and so on. So that means we had time even to talk to activists or meet with oppositions and or human rights defenders in the country, and this is getting more and more problematic. As we've seen, we now have a new quality that even these countries, these autocracies or dictatorships are trying to control even this kind of sport, and want to control who is getting access to the country to these sport events. Yeah, and because I'm not the only person who is denied, for example, to go to a country. Even a colleague of mine is also denied going. I don't know with China in a couple of months, because normally when we remember the 2008 Summer Olympics, a lot of journalists entered the country even 1 year before to report about the situation in the country there. But because of the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, China it was not possible to go to the country. And even now, it's still impossible for a lot of colleagues to go to the country to report. And I think that it's getting more and more problematic.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kempe, for your submission. We have a lot going on in the chat box, but I'd like to, just before we round up, is Mr. Chido Onoha here? Onuma, I beg your pardon. I think Mr. Chido wants to contribute to this conversation. We've been having quite an interesting conversation around sports governance in Africa, and we've extended it a little bit to touch on sports governance in Europe. We've been talking about the irregularities in the sporting sector here in Nigeria, ranging from gender equality, bad leadership. Okay, I will have to mute everyone. Okay, talking about gender inequality, bad leadership, corruption, and and so much more. So, Mr. Chido, can you answer right now? Do you want to respond or contribute?
Yeah, thank you very much, Stephanie. And thanks to everyone who has joined. Congratulations to Player, HEDA, I think PTCIJ for this. Sorry, the network here has been fluctuating, so I missed a bit of the conversation. But quickly, it's been an engaging and stimulating conversation. One of the things that is of interest to me is Robert's presentation around the issue of whistleblowing and sports. And I think that it's a wonderful intersection, particularly when it relates to a country like ours. And I raise this because as an organization, I'm the coordinator of the African Center for Media and Information Literacy. We have a whistleblowing project that has been running for 4 years, and we've been looking at possible areas of expansion. Presently, we're working with government institutions, and we're thinking of expanding the scope to incorporate banks and also other financial institutions. And when Robert mentioned sports and whistleblowing, I thought it was a wonderful opportunity to explore the relationship between whistleblowing, because a lot of the crazy stuff going on in sports in Nigeria, the corruption, the opaqueness, and the lack of accountability, which great journalists like Olukayode Thomas have been dealing with for decades now, will continue unless we have a regime or a system which the malfeasance that is going on there, that people can adequately report the wrongdoings without fear of repercussion, without consequences, and so on. So this is really not a question, it's just to emphasize the point that Robert made. Perhaps he has something some experience he might quickly share with us, but also it's a takeaway for player to consider that as part of further engagement on this issue. Thank you.
And thank you so much, Mr. Thank you so much, Mr. Chido Onoma, talking about whistleblowing. And this actually just dawned on me that a few years ago, a big investigation was done around the irregularities in the sporting body, making focus on the then I think Mr. Amaju Pinnick. You know, I think this investigation was done by Premium Times some years back, and it was as a result of whistleblowing. So it is important. I will just like Mr. Chido said, it is important that we synergize all of this to work together. Sports journalists cannot work in silos. Of course, you need information. And if whistleblowers have information, then it's important that they work sports journalists who understand the sporting sector real good. Thank you so much. Someone in Mr. Phillips Muwato. Mr. Phillips Muwato would like to connect with Mr. Kayode, and he says, Mr. Kayode, I would like to reach you much later. I will be glad to have your email, sir. I think this is a great opportunity for sports journalists to connect and think about how they can explore the sporting sector in Nigeria and in Africa, how they can highlight more about the irregularities, the gender inequality, sexual harassment in the sporting sector, corruption in the sporting sector, and so much more. It is interesting that Mr. Kempe said his freedom as a sports journalist in Germany, in Berlin, is good, but in other countries, it isn't. Well, I am not a sports journalist, but I know freedom of journalists here in Nigeria is not free at all. And it is important that we work together, civil society organizations, the government, and so much more, as many bodies as possible. Please, if you have any question, do well to ask as we wrap up this conference. It has been great talking to each and every one of you. But if you have any questions, please let us wrap it up, or you can just drop your question and I'll attend to it. If not, I'm going to give or hand over the baton to Mr. Eze Aloysius before he returns the baton to me. Okay, it's just a conversation going on in the chat box. There's been a lot of back and forth around the Aisha Buhari Cup, you know, but it is important that we see sports journalists do incredibly well in investigating the irregularities in the sports industry. Thank you so much, everyone, for making out time to be here. Before we wrap this conference up, I'd like to introduce someone that I have been working with for some time, someone that had to drag me to do this, and I really appreciated the opportunity. Mr. Eze Aloysius, if you're there, please, I'd like you to give a closing remarks before I wrap this all up. A summary, outlook, and closing remarks. Mr. Eze Aloysius, are you here?
Yes, thank you very much.
I have a question, ma'am.
Oh.
Okay, Mr. Aloysius, please hold on. Let's hear the question before we go on. What's your question, please?
Yes, good evening, ma'am. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Yes, it has been a very great event. My question goes to Mr. Kayode, sir. My question is, over time, there was a particular story of players, the signing of players, documentation of players from one club to another, and it has become a major issue. Currently, the Malomo saga, the Adeleke from Abiaworo to Yimba, Malomo from Bay Academy to Shooting Stars, it has become a very big story that sometimes sport journalists will find it hard. Personally, I'm talking about myself personally now. I've been finding it difficult to actually document or to write that story because it's as if nobody or during transfer windows, we don't even used to know, we don't know how much club spent on buying players from one particular club to another. So I don't know, is there a way you've been able to get around this, or it has been, because for me personally, it has become a major problem, even to get club owners to see that documentation.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Kayode, please, can you respond to this quickly so that we
quickly,
can...
you know, it all boils down to what we're talking about. One of the biggest tragedy in this country was the removal of Bolaji Abdullahi as sports minister. You know, Bolaji had a plan to make the Nigeria league open as any league in the world. And he was ready to get assistance from Europe to run a transparent league. Because if you look at it all over the world, football is the only sport where you know what somebody is earning, movement, everything. He wants to make it open, but then it was removed and we are back to the old system. Most of these things are done in secrecy here in Nigeria because of corruption, not because of any other thing. So for you to actually get the facts about transfer, about movement, the CEO of the league that will make it a standard practice that things should be done in the open. As long as we don't have that, it might be very difficult. You get information, but the accuracy, because these are harmless information that even in the 80s, when people like Rashid Yakini are moving from TSC to Abela Babe, we know all the package. You get a house, you get a car, this is the transfer window, this is the movement, everything. It was so easy then that you don't even need to, the club will push out the stories. But now everything is done behind closed door. So I just wonder most times that even if you look at the health sector, education, our best are always behind us.
Okay, thank you so much for that submission. There is another question coming from Jonathan Asian, and he says, as a sports journalist with various areas, can we report the vacuum in terms of corruption on sports in Nigeria without the hindrance from the government? I think that question should come to you, Mr. Kayode.
Of course, if I'm corrupt and I'm making money and you want to report me, there will be hindrances, of course. I mean, people who always want to protect their territory. It's for you to get the job done. I want to intimidate you. I will use everything against you. I will use your editors in the office against you. It happened to me. When we started getting Adamu will use all manners of people, your relation, your friends, to get to you. He will intimidate you, threaten you with lawsuits. So it's not an easy road. Everybody telling you that you want to change something from bad to good, it's not easy. That's the same way you want to change from good to bad. It's not easy. So it is you that you have to do your own career. That look, I want to stand out in this industry. What are the kind of stories that I need to do? What are the kind of name do I want to be called? So it's about self-motivation. But for obstacles, forget it. They will always be there.
Okay, so another question. This question, interestingly, the question is coming to you, Mr. Kayode. What do you think can be done to facilitate sponsor in the league, sir?
Well, the problem of the league is not about sponsorship. It's about transparency that we have seen. Look, when SuperSport was sponsoring the league, and it was into millions of naira, you know what the league body did? They handed over the sponsorship to Twitter Promotion, a company in Lukoji, Lagos. And none of the club got a kobo. The same thing when Glo was running the league. Obaseki then used all the money from Glo to run LMC. And they even have in their budget, there was a time I was working in this, I get a copy of their budget. They even have money for burial. They have money for all kinds of things. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the world, the TV need a percentage go to the club that are playing in the Premier League. And even clubs in the grassroots, they get part of the sponsorship money. But here, the sponsorship money sits in the office of the league body. So it's not about getting the sponsor. What do you do with the money that you get? So, I mean, what do you do about the money? If about 2-3 billion comes into a Nigerian Football League today, how much are the club getting? Earlier this year, Pinnick Amadou said that the MPL TV will give them so many billions. The season is over now. Nobody has been able to say, okay, Amaju, you told us this thing, that this thing will bring me billions. Oh, where are the billions? Why is it that as at now they cannot pay referee, the clubs cannot pay salary, and you say you are making billions from MPL TV? So it's beyond sponsorship.
Okay, we have so many questions coming in, and I'm actually just looking at our time, but I'll make sure that let me ask this question so that any of the panelists, any of the resource persons can respond as soon as possible. There are so many questions coming in at the same time. I beg your pardon. Oh, wow. Okay, someone is asking for your contact, Mr. Kayode Thomas. Someone is asking for your contact, and someone says, thanks to all the panelists, great input. From my personal experience, investigative journalists who collaborate with academics to further explore some of the problems in depth. Officials and athletes open up on some sensitive topic to academics than journalists. Okay. Pascal from the Gambia, based in Cologne, Germany. Thank you so much, Pascal. So this is another tip for Nigerian sports journalists. Pascal is saying that Pascal is saying that it's important that sports journalists collaborate with academics, that's the academia, because academics further explore some of the problems in depth, and officials and athletes open up more when it comes to sensitive information to the academia compared to the journalists. Thank you so much for your take. And someone said, I'm glad to be among legends in the world of sports and reporting. Great, well done, thank you. Someone said, I hope we can collaborate on some projects. Now, I think these questions are to the resource person, be it Ms. Ajayi, Mr. Kempe, and Mr. Kayode. So for all of you asking for Mr. Kayode's contact, Mr. Kayode, I'm sure will be available to respond to your question and possibly collaborate with you. Due to time constraints, we'll have to draw a curtain here, but before then, I'll hand the baton to Mr. Aloysius before he hands it back to me.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Steflin. I want to thank everybody, particularly our resource persons, for coming around, and to even at the shortest notice. And some of them really did wonderfully well, and we really appreciate that. And I want to also appreciate again all the partnering organization, Premium Times, HEDA Resource Center. I want to really thank you guys for the wonderful job. I mean, the special thank goes to Madam Steflin, our uncle, you know, for the couple of few days we've been going through this forth and back, and then I was surprised at your vast knowledge in sports and also your ability to be able to handle this very well for us. I'm really impressed and I really appreciate you. Thanks a lot. I just want to say, even though I have already made speech, for want of time, I will quickly summarize by saying that the problem or the challenges we are having in sports as far as Africa is concerned or Nigeria cannot start and end today. It's a process that started over many years, you know, the decadence, and then I think it will take a couple of years for us also, you know, to get them right. But what is more important is how much time or our interest or the ability to show more interest in developing, in living where we are to where we need to be. I remember as a young boy, you know, on the streets of Lagos, we used to play all manners of competition when there are public holidays, especially the long public holidays. You could find empty spaces where you could recreate, where you could make a makeshift stadium for yourselves and then have your competition. But now urbanization took over everything with little or no plan from our government, you know, to even make this space available. And this is really affecting I mean, say it anywhere. The best of our sportsmen and women were discovered in the slum, you know, where they had opportunity to space where they could recreate. And it bitters my own mind, you know, to see that as day goes by, the recreational spaces are just going off our land. So we really need to work about this, especially to those in government. Urbanization comes with spaces, you know, where people could, you know, recreate, especially young men and women. The problem we have in the North, the problem of insecurity we have in the East, the ones we have in the West and other parts, is not unconnected to the fact that able-bodied men and women who were supposed to be recreating are now using the energy, you know, to commit all sorts of atrocities. So, and I think the better time our government look into this, you know, towards resolving it, the also more better for us as a people, you know, where we can begin to gather people together, especially young men and women, you know, to recreate. Corruption is a major issue, and that we have dwelt in more than enough as far as this conference is concerned. We cannot overemphasize it. And I think those people in charge of our sport can will listen to the words of wisdom and then see how they can make a 360. You know, that fact of just going to UK or going to Europe or elsewhere to beg people with dual citizenship to come back home to come and represent Nigeria is a shame, to say the least. And I think anybody who has feeling of shame shouldn't do that. You know, you should know how to go about it, so to make sure that you make things work out. So I really appreciate everybody. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate the time we have spent together, and we look forward to continue the conversation. I wish you the best of evening.
Thank you so much, Mr. Aloysius. Just before we wrap it all up, I'd like to tell or remind all the campus journalists on this conference that we'll be looking forward to reading your submissions or reading your articles or reports about this event. And like I said earlier, that in the next 24 hours, the individual with the best reportage of this conference will be rewarded handsomely. Thank you so much. But before you leave, I'd like you all to please turn on your cameras so that we can have a photo. If you don't mind, just turn on your camera. So that we can all have a photo. Mr. Aloysius, do you have control of this? Please go ahead and screen grab our smiles.
I will have to. Okay.
Do you have control now?
Oh, I don't think so. But do you?
Okay. Okay, so let me try.
I think you should. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, lovely people on the conference. Okay, so please turn on your videos. I can't see you and your smile.
Mr. Suraj, turn on your camera.
Mr. Suraj, turn
on your
camera.
Camera. We want to see your face.
We can see a lot of people on here. So everybody say cheese.
Cheese.
Okay. Thank you so much for making our time to be here. If you speak Hausa, Nagode. If you speak Yoruba, Ishego. If you speak Igbo, Dalu. And if you speak German, Dankechu. Thank you so much for coming and have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.